guys, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining today for this exciting SAP webinar series. Before we dive into all the exciting new updates, let's begin with a quick recap of the SAP Sentinel solution to refresh our memory. SAP is a global leader in business software solutions, and they do play a significant role in driving global commerce. In fact, SAP customers generate over 87% of total global commerce. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that their systems are an attractive target for attackers. So what can we do? Well, an effective approach to SAP threat monitoring requires several key components. First and foremost, you need multi-layered coverage. It is crucial to protect not only the SAP application layer, but also the database layer and the operating system layer. But going deep into the layers is not enough. You also need to consider expanding your security. What do I mean by that? Well, to obtain a good understanding of your organization's security landscape, you must connect the dots and integrate information from various sources. This includes network logs from other systems like firewalls, user activity like from Azure Active Directory, system events, and many more. And by doing so, you can uncover the hidden patterns and detect potential threats that may span over multiple systems. Now, we have gone wide and in-depth to get the right logs. We also need to truly understand our SAP systems to quickly identify anomalies and potential threats. An effective SAP monitoring requires specialized detection mechanisms that are adjusted to the unique characteristics and vulnerabilities of your SAP systems. And for all these requirements, I have the perfect answer. Microsoft Sentinel solution for SAP applications. Now, before we go into more details around the solution, I also want to share with you a scary statistic that emphasizes even more the importance of detecting malicious activities. Out of every 1,500 cyber attacks on SAP systems, 300 are successful. I think we all realize that protecting your SAP environment is a must. And that's why we offer the Microsoft Sentinel solution for SAP. This solution leverages Microsoft Sentinel capabilities across all levels to detect, analyze, investigate, and respond to threats in your SAP environment. With this solution, you gain enhanced visibility into your SAP application logs, allowing you to combine them with your database and operating system logs to obtain a full picture of your SAP environment. The solution consists of two parts, a data connector agent and a content hub solution. Let's start with exploring the data connector aspect. The data connector agent operates as a container within a Linux virtual machine. This VM can reside in Azure, a third-party cloud, or on-prem. The agent establishes a connection with your SAP system to extract the logs and all other relevant data, which then it transmits to your Microsoft Sentinel workspace. Now, on the second part of the solution, we are looking at the actual content. Within the Content Hub solution, you'll discover our pre-configured content, including watch lists, analytic rules, workbooks, and much more. To delve deeper into these artifacts, I do encourage you to watch our previous SAP webinar on our YouTube channel. In this webinar, Yoav and Andrew delivered an exceptional demo that showcased the entire solution and its content in great detail. So I do encourage you to take a look at their session. But essentially, the SAP solution within Microsoft Sentinel equips you with great content. The out-of-the-box analytic rules allow you to monitor for incidents, while the watch list can be tailored to align with your specific environment. Additionally, we have the workbooks that provide convenient dashboards so that you have an enhanced overall user experience. So it is important also to note that this pre-configured content can be customized to meet your unique requirements. And of course, you also have the full flexibility to create your own content. So this ensures that the solution will align perfectly with your needs. Now, let's conclude the recap and move on to some exciting highlights that I'd like to share with you. As you can see on the slide, I am very thrilled to announce that we have obtained official certification since March for SAP S/4HANA Cloud, Private Edition RISE with SAP, and SAP S/4 On-Prem. In a few minutes, Yoav will provide further insights specifically regarding SAP RISE, but for now, let's focus and celebrate that we are officially certified. Now, the other update, you may recall that starting from May, there is an add-on charge associated with this solution. However, I'm very happy to tell you that this charge is applicable only to your production systems. And we only charge for the time where the agent is up and running and connected to those production SAP systems. Of course, the previous highlights are not the only updates we want to share with you. And from this point onwards, we will explore in greater detail some of the latest additions to our product. First item. We have incorporated a new feature called health monitoring, which plays a vital role in ensuring the reliability of your SAP data collection in Sentinel. By actively monitoring the health of your collector agent, you can ensure a consistent flow of security data from SAP into Sentinel. This means that we can help detect any disruptions or gaps in data collection, which thus, of course, leads to an effective measure against tampering attempts. If any anomalies occur in the collection of your SAP logs, you will be promptly notified, and this enables you to take immediate action. Now, let's explore how you can access the layers of health monitoring. But let me switch to my demo environment to show you live where you can find the information. First off, let's go to the data connector blade and go to the data connector for SAP and open up the connector page. And here you can find valuable information. First off, on the left side, you can see the amount of data received, which kind of serves as an indicator of the data flow's health. If, for instance, no logs have been received over an extended period of time, it could indicate an issue. On the right side, you will find a section that lists the connected agents and their health status, indicating whether they require updates or if they are functioning properly, healthy, or if something is wrong. It's also worth noting that you can also view the system's role of your SAP environment over here. This allows you to identify production systems that will incur charges. Also, a small side remark that I want to mention here, our SAP connector retrieves the system role from SAP systems itself to determine whether it's a production system or not. If the status is unknown to us, like the top line, it will be displayed as unknown production, and it will be counted as a production system. So it will incur cost. So this situation can be encountered due to permission issues, for example. Now back to the health. You can also utilize the analytics. So for analytics, we have the SAP Data Collection Health Check, which monitors the health of your SAP agent. This analytic rule reports on anomalies, and it will alert your SOC team if something goes wrong. You can even set up automated responses over here, such as sending an email directly to the owner of the VM running the agent. And many more automated responses are possible. But for more detailed information, you can refer to our documentation, which is also displayed on this slide. So with these multiple layers of health monitoring, we can proactively warn you if any issues arise with the connector. And by addressing potential problems promptly, we prevent blind spots in your security monitoring process, and thus we ensure the overall integrity and effectiveness of your security operations. Now, if you've attended our previous webinar or followed our blog post, you might be wondering why I have included SOAR capabilities as a product release in these slides. Well, since we did showcase the capabilities of SOAR with SAP already last year. However, we now have an improved way of utilizing our SOAR capabilities with SAP. Before diving into the details, let's quickly recap what SOAR means with SAP in Sentinel. In Sentinel, we not only monitor and analyze security events in real time, but we can also automate SAP incident response workflows. So we do offer a wide range of out-of-the-box playbooks that include actions such as blocking an IP on firewalls, creating tickets on third-party vendor software, obtaining additional information about entities, and much more. In this webinar, our focus is to showcase the actions that we can perform on SAP itself via automated actions. Last year, we demonstrated how to block a user on SAP using a playbook with a data gateway component. However, this year, we have simplified the playbook, requiring only configurations without the need for additional systems. Moreover, we have released these playbooks on the Content Hub, making them easily downloadable. Let's now explore how our most popular playbook of the moment works. In this example, we have defined the SE80 transaction as a to-be monitored action, as it should only be used by specific authorized users in our system. If someone uses the SE80 transaction in SAP, it gets logged into Sentinel through our collector agent. Since Sentinel is monitoring for this, an incident is immediately created, triggering our logic app. The logic app sends a message to the SAP Securities Team private team channel, alerting them about the situation and requesting guidance through adaptive cards on whether to block the user on AD, BTP, or SAP. Let me show you how that card actually looks like. So over here is an example of an incident in Sentinel where the user LockMe, it's obvious a demo environment, where the user LockMe executed the SE transaction, and now via the adaptive card, it's being asked, do we want to block the user or is it a false positive? If we block the user, then we get the choice to block it on SAP BTP, or on Azure Active Directory. If the decision is to block the dangerous user on SAP, the logic app proceeds with the necessary steps to execute the user block request using APIM to connect back to the SAP system through a SOAP request. Because I know you're all eager to find out more, I would like to refer you to our blog post for a more detailed deep dive. Now, let me quickly only show you where to find these playbooks. If you have downloaded the solution from Content Hub, you can go over to Automation, then Playbook Templates, and there you see our 3 newly released playbooks. As you can see, there's also another playbook available that can automatically enable the audit trail if a user has intentionally or accidentally disabled it. So when Sentinel detects this, you can configure that an automated action re-enables the audit trail without requiring any user input. By the way, all these playbooks can be customized and new playbooks can be easily created if you have the appropriate SAP function module code. On to the next improvement, data exfiltration detection. Data exfiltration poses a real significant threat in SAP attacks. SAP systems contain critical and valuable data, including financial records, customer details, intellectual property, and other sensitive information. So it comes at no surprise that these systems also become prime targets for cyber criminal attacks, trying to access that data. And you know what is the scariest part in all this? Although SAP contains the most sensitive data, most organizations have no visibility on their data exports. Of course, I wouldn't be telling you about all these dangers if we didn't provide some artifacts that can help monitor for these attacks. And in order to assist you in monitoring and detecting potential data exfiltration attacks, we have introduced several helpful artifacts. The first rule focuses on alerting when a user downloads a file from an SAP system using a known malicious IP address. For this rule, we leverage Microsoft Sentinel threat intelligence to obtain information on that malicious IP address. So this means that, of course, it is necessary that you have onboarded threat intelligence indicator feeds. The second rule is straightforward. It generates an alert when SAP data is exported and saved to a recently mounted USB drive. The alert identifies recently mounted USB drives using Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Third rule requires some clarification, maybe, because in SAP, transports are similar to pull requests, and they are typically created in a development system. So this rule triggers an incident when a transport is released from a production system. Fourth rule, self-explanatory, alerts when a sensitive data is being printed. And the last one checks if a user has downloaded a significant amount of sensitive data. Out of the box, we have configured 8 megabytes as the threshold for high volume, but of course you can customize these rules as much as you want. Now, normally I was also going to demonstrate the content of this slide via a multi-staged incident from a demo environment, but looking at the time, I don't have time for it. But I do encourage you to look at the YouTube video link because that's where Rob delves into the various layers of that multi-layered attack, and he also explains the countermeasures provided by Microsoft. And one part of that multi-layered attack is actually that the attackers are trying to get SAP information out of their SAP system. So highly sensitive information was being attacked and they were trying to get information. But please go ahead and look at the demo video and pay attention to the SAP part. Now, as I mentioned, I don't have that much time left, but before I hand over the mic to the incredible Yoav, let's take a moment to discuss this final important topic of mine. So we've implemented another special rule. This one keeps an eye on over 52 important security settings in SAP systems. So SAP provides helpful advice on how to monitor these settings to improve your system security. And by staying on top of these important settings, you can quickly spot any unauthorized changes, potential security risks, or configuration problems. Let me just give you 2 examples from the 52 parameters that we monitor before I shut up. So this rule actually is depending on one of our watch lists. So if you go to the watch list page and look for SAP system parameters, then you get that full list of parameters. If you edit it, then, for example, we could look for one of the parameters is checking if the frequency at which users should change their password. So actually it is wait time. So this one checks how often they should change their password. And this helps enforce good password practices and ensures that passwords are updated regularly. So imagine if this setting suddenly changed without your knowledge, then it would definitely raise some concerns, right? And you would like to be notified. Another one which I think is interesting is this one. That's the one that watches for the maximum idle time for SAP GUI connections. So this setting automatically logs out users after a certain period of time of inactivity, and then adding an extra layer of security, then logging them out. So this is also another good parameter to monitor if someone changes this, for example. Now, keep in mind that you have the flexibility to customize the watch list and monitor additional settings that are specific to your needs. And remember that keeping a close eye on these critical parameters is really key to safeguarding your SAP system and ensuring its security. Now, without further delay, let me pass the mic to the amazing Yoav and continue our exciting SAP journey together with Yoav.
Thank you very much, the amazing Naomi, for this presentation, and let me continue to share the goodness and more demos, more new stuff that is coming in. So in continuation to what you have shared about being able to monitor for suspicious configurations, by the way, is my screen shown? No, right? Okay. So, thank you, Naomi, again. And in addition to what Naomi presented, the new ability to monitor for suspicious or risky configurations and changes to that configurations continuously, we now provide a new capability. It's being rolled out, so expected very soon to be available in your Content Hub with a solution upgrade. The ability to continuously monitor for SOX and NIST compliance, and also to customize the monitoring for your own compliance, your own organizational standards. And this can help you speed up the process of auditing and also make sure that you're continuously compliant. The way this works, we map all our detections, including the ones for the risky configurations and the one that actively look for a breach, and provide the ability to configure and manage the configuration in addition to being able to monitor and generate a report. Let me show you how this looks like. So this is the new SAP audit controls workbook. Here we can see the different controls that are currently not implemented as part of the monitoring, and we provide a recommendation of whether to enable that rule that is not yet active as an alert or as an incident, and you can create the rule from here with the click of a button. And here on the and below that, you can see all the different controls that are implemented. You can see the trends of the incidents and alerts generated by the implemented control. You can configure each control from here and decide to which kind of regulatory standard it will apply, to which family it belongs, what is the control ID, and that's very useful later when you generate the report. So once you finished configuring the solution, you can monitor the state of your compliance continuously. In this case, we look at the incidents hive by the control family and by the control ID, and you can see that some of the specific control is being read, and there are a lot of alerts that are related to that control, and you're able to evaluate and show the auditor that you're actually proactively monitoring those controls by their ID, and also use it for yourself in order to make sure that you are secure. Of course, there's a lot of filters here. I'm not going to go through all of them by the system role and by the tactics, and you can, and I think that's self-explained. And the last option is to generate a report of all the different controls and their severity, the control ID that is assigned to them, and how we are, in which alert is relevant for that, and provide an actual report of which controls are implemented when needed. So let's continue. Looking at the deployment options, I want to talk a little bit about deployment. There's a lot of new stuff going on that front, and I want to start with the fact that we deploy a Docker container and we can deploy it virtually anywhere. We can deploy it on a virtual machine in Azure, AWS, GCP, on-premise, and whatnot. And we can deploy that Docker container also on top of an AKS cluster or any Kubernetes. We provide the best practice that is made by the great Andrew Lumakin and is shared in our tech community. And you'll see the link in the chat very soon on how to use the solution with AKS, and the documentation, and most of the customers install the solution on a virtual machine. That virtual machine needs to have network access to the SAP RFC ports, and on the other hand, outbound communication that is open for the Log Analytics API to send the data to Sentinel and to Azure Key Vault to retrieve the secrets. So that means that all you have to do is find a location where you feel comfortable to place the Docker, for example, in the same subnet with the SAP system, so you don't have to pinch any hole through the firewall, and connect to it and back to Azure with the data. Then, in terms of credentials options, I said that we keep the data and credentials in the Key Vault, which is the recommended options. There are additional options available to you to keep them locally or in environment variables. In terms of access options to the Key Vault, because the agent does need to authenticate to the Key Vault to get the secrets, there are two options: the managed identity, which is the easier option and is available on virtual machines or Kubernetes in Azure, and using a registered application identity, which is available everywhere. And here there's also a link for the documentation on how to achieve each one of those options. In terms of secure network connectivity to SAP, that is a capability delivered by SAP. It's a unique capability, very kind of proprietary to SAP, and we support using X509 certificates for authentication. Username and password together with SNC is already on preview, and we'll soon publish the documentation on how to achieve that. And you can read more step-by-step guide on how to configure SNC secure network communication in case you are interested to use that in our docs. Of course, we also support the plain username password option that is possible to use. So when it comes to SAP RISE, we are certified to SAP RISE, and it is been often asked about the benefits of Sentinel for SAP on top of SAP RISE. So SAP RISE Private Edition is a managed SAP system. SAP manages the system for the customer, and in order to retrieve data from it, like we retrieve from any system, we act like a user, accessing the SAP APIs using RFC, the APIs, and it's the same with SAP. We utilize a standard interface called XAL to get the data, and what we cannot retrieve in this case is the infrastructure data, the virtual machines, the firewall data from the SAP subscription, because SAP owns the RISE subscription and not the customer. And the value add in that case is first that we allow you to monitor the user activities, which are clearly the responsibility of the person maintaining the application, which is our customer and the CISO, with out-of-the-box analytics and dashboard, and the analytics and dashboard that you've seen now works also on a RISE environment. We provide the ability to monitor, to correlate and triage events from SAP RISE together with events from the endpoint. For example, a suspicious process executed on the laptop, and then something happened on SAP, like adding a privileged user and logging into it from the same IP. Then all that information is very, very useful for triaging and correlating the events to gain more fidelity. And of course, also Active Directory and additional data sources that are in the customer span of control. And of course, you use our system to monitor the RISE subscriptions together, or the RISE systems together with the rest of the systems that you have deployed. So we are fully hybrid in support. For monitoring the SAP RISE infrastructure, the managed service itself, it is part of what RISE manages generally, and in your accordance with your agreements with SAP, of course. And there is a link for documentation here that explains the integration to show an example of how this is carried in Azure. Then if you are using SAP RISE on Azure, and you can also use SAP RISE in another cloud and protect it with Sentinel, you'd install a virtual machine or a container. That container will need to have VNet peering or any other option that you choose in your discussion with SAP, connect to the RFC, the API of SAP, and retrieve the data like we do with other systems. That way, you get to protect the user, to monitor and protect the user activities carried on SAP RISE with Sentinel. So another thing I want to show you, and I want to show a short demo of that, is the ability to cross-investigate and work together between the different silos. So we have the SAP team, which is an organizational silo. They have the expertise to monitor everything SAP, and we have the SOC, which is responsible for the overall security of the company and responding to all the incidents. And SAP, being such a crown jewel and such an important asset, requires the collaboration of the two. That's why we've released, as part of the SAP solution, a unique capability that both teams gain access to the SAP data, but the SOC data is only available to the SOC team, and everybody can work seamlessly on their own environment. The way it works is that you create a dedicated workspace for the SAP data, and that workspace is seamlessly referenced by our solution, so you don't need to write any cross workspace queries or anything like that. And the SOC can activate analytic rules and monitor the system as you've seen in the demos so far, while the SAP team can work on new detections on his own workspace and assist the investigation process. So the way to deploy this is actually quite simple. You go to Microsoft Sentinel Content Hub, you pick the SAP applications solution, you reinstall or install the solution. In my case, it's a reinstall. You wait a little bit, and you choose to create. Wait a little bit, and then you choose the resource group for that specific where your Sentinel is located, and you can click that some of the data is on a different workspace, and then you need to provide the workspace for the SAP data, where the actual data is ingested, and for the SOC data, where all the rest of the organizational data is. So the SAP team cannot see where people are browsing to, or things that the security team naturally see. And on the other hand, they have full access and the full ability to completely collaborate together with the SOC team. And of course, additional solutions that we've showed you before in these presentations, like the playbooks, allow you to create a collaboration for people which are maybe less involved in the day-to-day, but also need to take action sometimes and may not use the graphical interface, but more easily respond to an email or a Teams chat. So, looking at the last major demo I want to show you, and then I will hand over to Yossi. So we have this new preview. It's coming out very soon. You need to register to gain access to it, and we will attend as soon as possible the request. And that's a new simplified guided deployments that allow you to use a single agent, a single Docker connector, to connect to multiple SAP systems and configure and control the agent completely from the user interface, from the UI. So let me show you a little bit of how it works. So now we have this concept of an agent. What you need to do is get into the connector page, and this is not available yet. This will be available to you upon registration and will accommodate requests. You need to add a new agent, and this will give you the instructions of what you need to do in order to add the new agent. You do need to create a VM like before, and you'll need to fill in for all the different details here. Give the agent a name, choose a subscription for it, choose a key vault where we'll keep the secrets and the configurations for that agent, provide the location for the SAP zip, the SDK on the VM, choose whether you want to use managed identity or application identity, like we've discussed before when we review the options, and you can enable SNC, and then you will need to provide the SAP crypto lib in order to enable that. After you install the agent and after you continue, you'll get a one-liner command that you need to run on the virtual machine, which will simply do the installation for you. Once you do that, you need to wait a little bit until it's installed, and then you will see the agent reporting to the UI. From this point on, you can connect SAP systems to that agent, and multiple systems to that agent, and by clicking Add System, Add New System, and starting to configure the SAP specific system, and then that system will show below in the monitoring, as you've already seen in Naomi's demos. You can choose to use a message server for load balancing, an IP address, and authentication. You can use SNC or username and password-based authentication, and you can choose which logs to enable and which logs to keep turned off. So you have the ability to configure, and you'll be able to go back and edit the configuration later on, and then you can simply deploy, and that agent will start to collect data from your SAP system, recognize the role of the system automatically, of course, and will give you a smooth experience of modifying and working with the agent on the day-to-day. We encourage you to register to the preview. It can take a little bit of time until we accommodate, but I'm promising that it will get to everyone, of course, until it's becoming fully available publicly. So without further ado, I would like to pass the stage to the magnificent Yossi Hasson, which will talk about BTP and also about how BTP security is linked to our Power Platform and what we can do for you when it comes to protecting that environment.
Thank you, Yoav. Thank you, the amazing and magnificent and the great Yoav. And now to something completely different, right? So we'll talk a bit about BTP, Business Technology Platform, and also about Power Platform, and how customers, how you are using those solutions to those platforms to wrap up, to build applications and build capabilities on top of SAP and other business applications, and how those platforms, those solutions are posing risk, security risk, and what you should do to protect yourself better and to detect threats on those platforms. So let's talk about BTP. So SAP BTP, Business Technology Platform, that's a cloud-based solution that provides a wide range of tools and services for SAP developers to build, run, and manage applications. That's known. And one of the key features of it is the low-code app development capabilities. And what we see is that in many companies, many customers, there is uncontrolled and unmonitored usage and creation of applications with SAP BTP. And that poses a major security risk to organizations, as those apps are eventually the gateway to the cloud, from the cloud to sensitive subsystems. They access sensitive business data. They integrate with multiple business applications, enable key business processes, and they're created by citizen developers or other developers that are usually not so security savvy. They're also used by a wide range of users, internal and external. Therefore, the risk is large. What we built in Sentinel, and it's in a preview phase right now, and you're all welcome to try it, is the Sentinel solution for SAP BTP. And that's a solution that provides security monitoring and threat detection capabilities for SAP BTP by doing three things. One, provides a data connector that is ingesting the SAP BTP configuration changes, security changes, activity logs into Sentinel. It provides an overall activity and identity management visualization with an included workbook. And it also provides today 5 analytic rules that are alerting on suspicious or potentially malicious activities in SAP BTP. And yes, it's only 5, but we are looking to expand it to many more. And we are looking for your feedback and your requirements in terms of additional analytic rules that you would want. I won't go through the list. I'll just dive right into the demo, and we'll show you the solution, how it looks like, and what's the value of the solution. So, like in any other solution in Sentinel, you go to Content Hub, search for the solution, you find SAP BTP. That's the solution that we created. It's already installed in my test environment, so let's manage it and look at the contents. Installation is very easy. If you look at the contents, there are 3 main types of elements. One is the data connector. We'll get to it in the end. There are 5 detection rules, and there is the workbook. Let's talk about the detection rules. So what can we detect on SAP BTP today? So when you look at the Business Application Studio, that's the development environment where developers are developing applications on top of BTP. We can detect things like failed access attempts across multiple Business Application Studio sub-accounts. We can detect things like malware in those development spaces and so on. And we can also, of course, look at detections of other activities on the cockpit, on the BTP cockpit itself. Things like mass user deletion in a sub-account, or user that is added to a sensitive privileged role collection, and something that is very dangerous as adding trust and authorization identity provider to a new one to a sub BTP sub account, which means that users will be able to log in from other identity repositories. We'll take a look soon at one of those incidents, but I want to have a look at the workbook. So that's a sub BTP activity workbook that we created as a part of that solution. It has 2 main tabs, 2 main values for customers. One is more of an overview. It gives overall view and visualization of the activities and logs that flow through BTP. And the other is focused on identity management. When you look in overview, you'll see things like who are the most active accounts by the events that are generating. You'll see the different categories of events that are ingested. You'll see successful sign-ins activities over time, Business Application Studio sign-ins over time, and so on. And the identity management, that was something that we early preview customers asked us to add. Look at specifically activity of users. So top user account management events by user, user account management activity, more detailed activity of different users, and very importantly, the security role collection management event. So anyone changing, modifying security role collection will also be appearing here. Let's look at an incident, for example, and see how it looks like. Very quickly, I'll go to my incident screen in Sentinel, and I look at unauthorized access attempt to multiple tenants. So in this case, we see that a user called WI King attempted and failed to log into multiple Business Application Studio dev spaces, and we even get a list of the GUIDs of those tenants. So that is tenant number 1 and tenant number 2. And of course, like in any incident in Sentinel, you see things like the incident timeline. In this case, there was only 1 event in the timeline. You can see the entities that were involved. So the application is, of course, BTP, the user that was involved, and very interestingly, also similar incidents that are relevant. So many other BTP-related incidents are here. And you can also investigate and look a bit of a graphical view of the attack and continue drilling into it. So that was quickly the demo of SAP BTP. I also want to very quickly show you the connector that we use and how it's enabled. I'm going back to here. Okay, so the connector today is built on an Azure function. In order to enable it, you have to pass through a few steps. The first step is to create a key vault in which we will store the important settings and parameters from the SAP BTP sub account. Then you have to do a few configuration steps on the sub BTP side. Very easy. basically, you'll go to the SAP BTP cockpit. That's a cockpit. You'll have to make sure you have an audit log management service instance deployed and used. You will create a service key by clicking those three points over here, and then you'll click the credentials and you will find the credentials that you will need to use in the next step. And the next step is the Azure function. So we will deploy an Azure function. You'll use the credentials that you got in the last phase, and then you'll set the key vault access policy to make sure that the Azure function can access all of those details. The function will run every 15 minutes and provide the most recent logs to you from BTP back to Sentinel. Okay, so that was the demo. So I guess you're all asking yourself, great, how can I use that? What should I do? So to onboard and deploy the Sentinel solution for SAP BTP, you have two main resources that you want to use. One is the announcement blog that we publish, another is the solution documentation. Go ahead and read through them. All of the details are there. You do have to sign up in that stage to access the preview, and the link to access the preview will be both in the announcement blog, for the sign-up, sorry, will be both in the announcement blog and in the solution documentation. Oh, wrong slide. Great. Next and last topic very quickly. So Power Platform is, we can say that it's the equivalent of Microsoft to SAP BTP, or the other way around. SAP BTP is the equivalent of Power Platform. It's basically an environment, a platform, a solution that helps customers build applications and develop capabilities and integrate different applications, usually business applications, together in order to streamline processes in the organization. In last December, we actually announced a deeper integration between Power Platform and SAP. You can see the blog here. Link to the blog will be in the chat soon. And that means that we have a new set of Power Platform capabilities to help organizations automate and provide simplified access to their SAP applications, including things like pre-built Power Apps for common SAP processes, pre-built Power Automate flows for those processes, and new Power Platform connectors for SAP. And you see some examples here of how it looks like graphically. But with great integrations comes great threats, and they are very similar to the threats that we discussed around with the BTP. And yes, we have a new Sentinel solution for Power Platform to the rescue. So let's talk a bit about that solution. We don't have a demo today for that because of the lack of time, but we'll be happy for you to join the preview and give us feedback, share more requirements. So introducing the Sentinel solution for Power Platform and Power Apps. So the solution, very similar to the BTP solution, it collects Power Platform inventory and activity logs from Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Platform connectors, and Power Platform DLP. And it has built-in detections. Today we have around 7. We're going, of course, to add more based on your feedback and requirements. Built-in detections for things like Power App activity from unauthorized geos, access to malicious links through Power Apps, bulk Power Apps deletion, new Power Platform connector that is added to the environment, departing employees that are running automated or scheduled activity using Power Automate, update or removal to Power Platform DLP policy, and Power Apps data destruction in Dataverse after an application is created or published, which can cause a major damage, of course. So if you want to join the preview, you are welcome to register here to the preview and get access, aka MS, MSFT, Sentinel, Power Platform, sign up. Thank you, and Pablo, back to you.
Thank you very much, Yossi, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to our speakers who have shared so much interesting information about our integration between Microsoft Sentinel and SAP. It's really important to see how we are helping protect SAP, such as an important product for multiple customers. Before I move forward and explain more about our customer connection program and how to influence the future of our products, I just want to present a few questions that came from the community to our speakers, because I think that it is important to make sure that we have some answers for them. The first question is, SAP has a lot of sources, and the concern is, can our solution monitor the health of of the input of these solutions? I mean, detect ingestion issues or anomalies on the specific sources. Can we monitor that health?
So Pablo, the answer is yes. We have a couple of layers of monitoring, like Naomi showed us. We have the ability to know if the agent is up, running, and connected to SAP on the connector page, and also an active rule that you can enable, detection rule, that detects also ingestion anomalies and can automatically be applied an automated action that will notify the relevant stakeholder to take action. So if somebody tries to tamper with the system and there is something weird about the data consumption, that is something that can be taken care immediately as any other detection in the system.
Thank you very much, Yoav. Another question that comes from our community is, how much control have customers in their ability to customize the flow of the automated responses from SAP?
Yes, so when we look at the automated response flow, it is out of the box, ready for you to use and utilize. However, we understand that in the end of the day, each customer has his own environment and needs. For example, one of our customers implemented a flow where the SAP basis team approves every privileged user that is created on the system using a Teams chat. And that's a slight change to the existing flow where you can report as false positive. That same button can say approve and close the incident because it is an operation that is approved, and it's eventually a logic app that the playbook is a logic app that you can modify, edit without having to be a coder or an expert, and that's something that every organization can customize for their own need.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. And the final question that we have is, being ingestion such an important topic in Microsoft Sentinel, what is the typical ingestion size for a typical SAP production environment? And can customers actually control what data they are ingesting?
Yes, so when it comes to ingestion cost, then we can talk about typical numbers. Generally, it can really vary by the use case and how the SAP system is customized and which audit events are enabled and so on. We typically see 1 to 10 gigabytes a day of data flowing in from productive systems, and very little in comparison to that from labs and test systems, naturally. And I would even say that usually on the lower side, but that's again something that depends on the system and use case. It's also possible to pick and choose which log sources you want to enable and further control the ingestion also on the SAP side by selecting which audit classes to enable, and we provide recommendation for that in our documentation.
Thank you very much, Yoav. Those were some of the open questions. And to everybody who are here in the call and all those who might be listening to this as a recording, feel free to let us know if you have any questions. In the recording and in the page of our recordings, you have the information of how to contact us. But now I would like to move to the next portion of the final portion of the presentation. And can I get confirmation if you can see my desktop?
We cannot yet, no.
Okay, perfect. What about now? Not yet?
Not seeing it yet.
Okay, perfect. What about now?
Oh, yes. There we go.
Excellent. Thank you. And apologies for that little issue. First of all, I want to thank all our speakers. Thank you very much again for sharing this information, and quickly take a couple of minutes from our audience to talk a little bit about our Microsoft Security Customer Connection Program. These are communities where our Microsoft customers, partners, and Microsoft MVPs have the opportunity to share their engineering feedback about our products directly with our product groups, directly with our feature PMs. And that way help us create even better security products. You can see a little bit of information on who makes our current community here on this slide, but we have over 5,000 members in our private communities who actively help us engineer better security products for our customers and our partners. One important thing to mention is that to become a member, your company must have an active non-disclosure agreement with Microsoft, as the information that we share with the members of our communities is confidential. It's information that has not yet been announced to the public, precisely to be able to capture feedback before those new experiences and those new features go to the public. Here you can see a little bit of the benefits that as a member of our communities you can get. There is no minimal participation. However, there is additional benefits for top contributors. And so you can see a little bit about here. But the most important thing is that you would have the ability to influence the future of our security products, and also to be aware of what are our plans for them. As a member, you will have the ability to not only provide feedback for our roadmaps or our designs or private previews, but also be aware of what is coming next. This is one of the benefits for many members. These are the products that we cover in two of our communities. In the Microsoft 365 Defender CCP community, obviously we focus on the Microsoft 365 security space, while in the cloud security CCP community, we focus on cloud security and mostly on anything needed to protect the cloud and your investments. Microsoft Sentinel, for example, is one of the members of this community. Across the two communities, we are looking to make sure that you have the ability to influence the future of our entire SIEM plus XDR portfolio of products. And the most important thing as a member is that top contributors have the opportunity to be awarded digital badges. These are badges that you can show off, you can showcase in your LinkedIn profiles. And this also demonstrates the level of expertise that you are getting as a participant of the community. The more participations, the more active you are, the more prestigious and more exclusive the badges are, which is an actual reflection of how active you are in the co-design of our products. A little bit more information, you can find that in our blog. I know that Jacqueline is sharing these URLs in the chat, and these URLs will become active during our recording. To learn more, go to our blog, and to join us, here you have the URL. Remember that your company must have an active non-disclosure agreement with Microsoft, but we can help you understand how to achieve one if yours doesn't have one yet. Thank you for your attention, and Jacqueline, back to you.
Thank you so much, Pablo, and thank you to all of our speakers today, Naomi, Yoav, Yossi, and Pablo, for today's webinar. Such valuable content for everybody involved. Also, thank you to the rest of the team who is helping to answer incoming questions. And also, as always, thank you to all of our attendees for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. In case we missed your question today, or if you have any additional questions, please visit us on our Azure Sentinel forum at aka.ms/Azure Sentinel Community. I'd also like to remind listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to join our public community at aka.ms/security community. And lastly, we would love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars for you. So please take a minute to submit your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. I want to thank you all for being with us today again, and we hope to see you next time. Goodbye.